All right, Babylon. You've heard of it, right? Legendary city. But the story of how this place went from, well, basically nothing to a global power, that's what blows my mind.
Yeah, it kind of makes you rethink how power is built. You'd think empires just like start strong,
Yeah.
but Babylon, it's a different story.
Exactly. Today we're diving deep into the surprising things that made Babylon rise. Think strategic geography, early leaders. Oh, and don't underestimate the Euphrates River.
It was huge EE. We're talking more than water. Think ancient trade route, connecting Babylon to, get this, the Indus Valley. Imagine the cultural exchange going on back then.
Mind-blowing, right? And another cool fact, Babylon was founded by a group called the Amorites. Not exactly top dogs in Mesopotamia at the time.
Typical underdog story.
We'll unpack all that.
Okay.
Okay, first, setting the stage, right? Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
What made this region such a cradle of civilization? How'd Babylon fit in?
So Mesopotamia, it's nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. True cradle of civilization, as they say. Fertile land, thanks to those rivers, perfect for agriculture.
Makes sense.
And that's where we see farming really taking off. Leads to extra food, then bam, cities start popping up. Innovation explodes. Cuneiform writing, one of the earliest writing systems.
Like the original emoji.
Kinda.
Yeah.
And then you got the ziggurats, those massive temples. Imagine ancient skyscrapers, but for their gods.
I've always been fascinated by those. Talk about ambitious architecture. Okay, so we got this buzzing region, tons of new ideas, powerful cities like Uruk and Ur. When does Babylon show up?
Around 1894 BCE, founded by those Amorites we mentioned. Picture this, a small settlement surrounded by these heavy hitters. Not exactly an intimidating start, right?
Definitely not the front runner in this ancient power struggle. So what did these Amorites have going for them? How could they even dream of competing?
Well, they made a smart move. Settled right on the Euphrates River. Seems simple, but huge EE implications.
All right, let's talk about this Euphrates. It's more than just water, right? This river shaped Babylon's fate.
Totally. The Euphrates, it was Babylon's lifeline. Think of it as like a bustling ancient highway. Trade, communication, culture, it flowed through this river, connected them to a huge network of cities and civilizations, all the way to the Indus Valley, like we said.
Wow, that's incredible. I can only imagine all the goods and ideas flowing in, totally shaping Babylonian culture.
You got it. And it's not just trade. Crucial for agriculture, too. The farmers, they were clever. Built sophisticated irrigation systems, using that river water to grow tons of barley, wheat, dates. Boom. Stable food supply for a growing population.
Yeah, food security is everything, especially back then. You got that, you can focus on, well, everything else. Building, developing, maybe conquering a few neighbors, right? Speaking of which, what was the political scene like? What were these Babylonians stepping into?
It was wild. Imagine a region packed with city-states, each one wanting to be top dog. Places like Ashur, Akkad, Kish, big players, all with their own ambitions and rivalries, let's say.
Sounds chaotic.
It was. Shifting alliances, conflict, power struggles everywhere. Not exactly a welcoming committee for a new city-state.
So how did Babylon, this new kid on the block, not just survive, but actually rise to the top? Was it just brute force, or was there a smarter strategy?
That's where things get interesting. The early kings, they knew muscles weren't enough. They had to be strategic.
Makes sense.
Think arranged marriages to build alliances.
Yeah.
Navigating all those rivalries. And defending their turf when they had to.
Like a high-stakes balancing act.
Exactly. Needed both diplomacy and a strong army. And then, bam, you have Hammurabi enter the scene. A figure who will completely change Babylonian history.
Now, Hammurabi, you're a fan, right? Tell me, what made him such a pivotal figure?
Oh, he's fascinating. Inherits this super complex political situation. But with strategic genius, military power, and a vision for a unified Mesopotamia, he turns Babylon into the dominant power. Hammurabi, he got it. Real power. It's not just conquering. It's about a stable, just society.
Which brings us to his famous law code. It's mind-blowing. One of the earliest known legal systems. Coming from this ancient city, what makes it so revolutionary?
Imagine a world with no written laws. Justice is random. The powerful, they do whatever they want.
Sounds rough.
Yeah, that was life before Hammurabi's code. This code, it's carved on a giant stone stele. More than rules, it's a statement. How society should work. Family disputes, property, business, crime, it's all there.
Like a guidebook for ancient Babylonian life.
Pretty much. And the detail is amazing. Yeah. It lays out specific punishments for each crime. Aiming for fairness, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That comes from Hammurabi's code.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's echoed through history. But it wasn't just about punishment, right? It also protected people, created order.
For sure. Remember, this was a time of constant upheaval. Hammurabi wanted stability, clear expectations, consequences for everyone. He even tackled contracts, inheritance, how to treat slaves.
It's incredible they were dealing with these issues thousands of years ago. And the fact that this code was public, on a monument, that says a lot.
Totally. It's about transparency. Imagine people gathering around this giant stele, trying to understand the carvings. Gives us a glimpse into their lives, their worries, their hopes for a fair society.
Like a time capsule of their values. And yeah, some of those punishments, they seem harsh to us now. But we gotta consider the context. Hammurabi was creating order in a chaotic world. Do you think it worked?
I think it's safe to say Hammurabi's code had a massive impact, not just on Babylon, but on legal systems across the ancient world. Was it perfect? No. But it was a big step towards a more just world.
So, we have Hammurabi's military wins, his alliances, this groundbreaking law code, all helping Babylon rise to the top. Amazing how strong leadership can shape a nation.
Absolutely. His reign, it was a boom time for Babylon. He built huge temples, improved the city, turned it into a cultural and economic center. People came from everywhere.
Sounds like he was a master empire builder. But even the biggest empires, they face problems, right? What obstacles did Hammurabi have to overcome?
Well, ruling an empire that big, it was tough. Threats everywhere. Rebellions, rivalries with other kingdoms, even power struggles within Babylon. Staying in control, it was a constant battle.
A juggling act.
Yeah. And even the best leaders, their time is limited. After Hammurabi dies, Babylon, it faces a whole new set of problems, ultimately leading to its decline. But that's a story for another deep dive.
It feels like there's always another layer to uncover with this ancient world. Before we move on, though, you mentioned Hammurabi's vision of a unified Mesopotamia. Was that really his goal, to bring all those warring city-states under his rule?
He was definitely ambitious, and yeah, he conquered a big chunk of Mesopotamia. But was he after true unification or just expanding Babylon's power? That's something historians debate. There are signs that he respected the cultures he conquered, let them keep their traditions.
So maybe it wasn't about erasing those cultures, but uniting them under a single system of laws and leadership.
That's one way to look at it, and that's what makes him so fascinating. Ruthless, conqueror, or visionary leader trying to create a better world. We're still trying to figure him out.
It's amazing how history is never black and white, especially with someone like Hammurabi.
Right. That's what makes studying it so interesting. It's not just dates and names. It's about tackling these big questions, looking at things from different angles, trying to understand what shaped our world.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about today. We've explored Babylon's beginnings, the Euphrates River's role, and the complexities of Hammurabi's rule. There's still so much to uncover, though.
That's the beauty of a deep dive. Always more to discover. And with Babylon, it's a story that still captivates us, thousands of years later.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part, I gotta say, I'm in awe of these ancient civilizations, their ingenuity, their resilience.
Me too.
And in part two, we're gonna dive into Babylon's cultural achievements, from their amazing architecture to their contributions to math and astronomy.
Should be fascinating. It's funny, we think about ancient rulers, and it's all warriors and battles, right? But Hammurabi, he was different. A builder, a lawmaker. He knew true power. It comes from order, from justice in society.
And that's where his law code comes in. Still blows my mind. One of the first legal systems we know of. And it's from this ancient city. What makes it so groundbreaking?
Well, imagine no written laws. Justice. It's whoever's in charge that day. They just walk all over everyone.
Hey, not a good system.
Exactly. That was life before Hammurabi's code. This code, it's carved on this huge stone, a stele. It's not just rules, it's a declaration. This is how society should run. Family fights, property, business deals, crime, it covers it all.
Wow, so it's like the ultimate rule book for life in ancient Babylon.
Kind of, yeah, and the details, it's amazing. Each crime, it's got a specific punishment. Trying to be fair, make things proportional, like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's straight out of Hammurabi's code.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard that saying. So it wasn't just about punishing people, though, right? It was about protecting them, keeping things stable.
Absolutely. It was a wild time back then. So much change, conflict all over. Hammurabi wanted stability, clear rules, consequences for everyone. He even dealt with stuff like contracts, inheritance, how to treat slaves.
Wow. I mean, these are heavy issues even today. They were tackling this stuff thousands of years ago. And the fact it was all public, carved for everyone to see, that's powerful.
Totally. This wasn't about keeping secrets. It was about making the law clear for everyone. Imagine those ancient Babylonians huddled around this giant stone trying to figure out what it all means. It gives us a snapshot of their lives, their hopes for a fair system.
It really does, like a window into their world. Some of the punishments, they seem harsh by today's standards, but gotta remember the time period. Hammurabi was trying to create order in a really, really rough world. Did he succeed?
I think, without a doubt, Hammurabi's code, it shaped Babylon. And not just Babylon, it influenced legal systems all over the ancient world. Was it perfect? No way. But it was a huge step toward a fairer world.
So we've got Hammurabi's military victories, his strategic alliances, this amazing law code. It all comes together to put Babylon on top. Really shows how a strong leader can transform a whole nation.
Absolutely. His reign, it was a golden age for Babylon. Temples, infrastructure becomes the place to be. Culture, economy, it's booming.
He sounds like the ultimate empire builder. But no empire lasts forever, right? What kind of challenges did Hammurabi face trying to hold on to all that power?
Oh, ruling an empire like that,
Yeah.
never easy. Threats were everywhere. People rebelling, kingdoms fighting, power struggles within Babylon itself. Keeping control, it was a constant headache.
Sounds stressful.
It was. And even the strongest leaders, they can't rule forever. After Hammurabi dies, things get rough for Babylon. Eventually it crumbles. But that's another deep dive for another day.
Always another chapter to explore, right? Before we move on, I gotta ask, you mentioned Hammurabi wanting to unify Mesopotamia. Was that really his goal, bringing all those fighting city-states under one banner?
He was definitely ambitious, no question. And he did conquer a lot of Mesopotamia. But was it true unification or just making Babylon the biggest bully on the block? Historians still debate that. Some evidence suggests he actually respected the cultures he conquered, let them keep their customs and all that.
So maybe it was more about bringing them together under a shared system. Laws, leadership, that kind of thing.
That's one way to look at it. And that's what makes him so interesting. Ruthless conqueror or visionary leader. Did he actually want to make the world better? It's a question that keeps people thinking, even today.
It's fascinating how history is never simple, especially with a figure like Hammurabi.
Right. That's what makes it so awesome to study. It's not just remembering dates. It's about these big, messy questions, looking at things from different sides, trying to understand the forces that shaped us.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about today. We've covered Babylon's origins, how important the Euphrates River was, and all the twists and turns of Hammurabi's rule. But there's so much more, right?
Oh yeah, so much more. And that's what's cool about a deep dive. There's always another layer to peel back, another viewpoint to consider. Babylon, it's a story that keeps us coming back thousands of years later.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part, I'm just struck by how amazing these ancient civilizations were, their creativity, how they never gave up.
They were incredible.
And in part 3, we're going to switch gears a bit, dive into Babylon's cultural achievements, all those incredible buildings, their contributions to math and astronomy, the whole package. It's wild when you really dig in Babylon. It's more than just a name, right? This wasn't just military might. This was a whole society built on ideas, on pushing boundaries.
It's true. And so much of what they did, it's still with us. Their laws, architecture, even math, it's had this ripple effect through time. It's crazy.
Yeah, like those ancient echoes. They haven't faded away. It reminds us how powerful human ingenuity can be.
Speaking of powerful, we've talked about the Euphrates, this ancient superhighway of trade and all that. But did it play a role in their downfall too? Empires, they don't last forever, right?
That's a great point. It shows how even a strength, it can flip and become a weakness. Same river that brought him prosperity, it also made him vulnerable. Everyone wanted control of the Euphrates. And eventually, yeah, it became a problem for Babylon.
So even with Hammurabi's laws and all their advances, they couldn't escape that cycle of power. Makes you think about empires today, what lessons they could learn from Babylon.
Totally. If we zoom out, I think the big takeaway is adapting. Babylon, it thrived when it was open, new ideas, new tech, but then it kind of got stuck. Societies that can't change with the times, they usually end up the same way.
That's deep. But why should we care? Right. It's the 21st century, Babylon's ancient history. What's the relevance today? Well, to me, studying the past, especially a civilization like this, it gives us this fresh perspective on now, like the stuff we're dealing with, political fights, inequality, power struggles. It's not new. It's echoes of what they went through.
So by understanding their struggles, maybe we can figure out our own mess a little better. It's like having a map, not turn-by-turn directions, but understanding the terrain.
Exactly. And just personally, I think learning about history, these old stories, it just opens your mind. Makes you feel connected to something bigger, this whole human story we're all part of.
And Babylon, with all its mystery and grandeur, it's a Pretty captivating chapter in that story, huh?
Definitely. It sparks your imagination. Makes you wonder about those people, what they dreamed about, what they achieved. What stands out to you about Babylon after all this?
Honestly, it's how they balance the practical with the ambitious. They created this super detailed law code, they figured out irrigation, but they also built these mind-blowing things, like the Hanging Gardens, one of the seven wonders, come on.
That's what makes them so fascinating. It
Yeah.
wasn't just about surviving. They were aiming higher for something beautiful, something awesome.
And that's a legacy worth remembering, right? That even when things are tough, humans, we want to create, we want to push further, leave our mark.
100%.
Hmm.
As we wrap this deep dive up, I'm just feeling grateful, to have explored this part of history.
Me too. And for everyone listening, I hope this sparked your curiosity about Babylon. We've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover. Maybe it'll inspire you to do some digging of your own.
Who knows what you might find. Until next